Welcome to Science After Dark. It's that quiet hour. The
Yeah,
world has finally slowed down, the noise of the day has faded away, and you found your way here.
glad to be here.
Tonight, we're taking a deep dive into something you're going to do in just a little while, hopefully. Something you've done every single day of your life, and yet it remains one of the most profound mysteries in all of biology.
It really is.
Think about this for a moment. If you live to be 90 years old, you will spend roughly 30 of those years entirely unconscious.
Wow. Yeah, 30 years.
Right. For a full third of your existence, you are, for all practical purposes, just gone from the world.
It's a staggering amount of time to spend completely vulnerable and, disconnected from reality.
Yeah.
And what's truly fascinating is that despite more than a century of rigorous scientific study,
Mm.
if you strip away the nuance and ask the most fundamental question, like, why do we sleep?
Right.
The most honest answer
Yeah.
is that we still don't fully know.
Which is just wild to think about. I mean, we know how black holes work. We can sequence the entire human genome. But lying down and closing our eyes for 8 hours, still a massive puzzle.
It really is. And the reason it remains such a puzzle is that sleep isn't a single uniform state.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, historically, science held this very passive view of sleep. We thought of it simply as the absence of wakefulness.
Like just flipping an off switch at the end of the day.
Exactly, just turning off.
Yeah.
But our mission for this deep dive is to explore the true mystery of the resting brain. Because the reality is that sleep is a deeply active, vital, and highly complex suite of processes.
Wow.
Your brain doesn't shut down, it shifts into a completely different mode of operation.
Right. So before we can even begin to answer why we sleep, we have to look at what the brain is actually doing when the lights go out.
Yeah,
Because it isn't an on and off switch at all.
no, not at all.
It's a cyclical journey. We descend, we rise, we dive back down.
It's this meticulously choreographed architecture. Every
Yeah.
single night, we go through a 90-minute cycle, repeating it maybe 4 to 6 times. And during that 90-minute loop, your brain is shifting through distinct stages. We can actually track this by measuring the electrical activity of the brain, the movement of the eyes, and the tone of the muscles.
So let's walk through that architecture. We get into bed, we close our eyes, and we enter stage N1.
Yes.
This is that very light sleep transition. The brain waves start to slow down into what are called theta waves. And this is usually where, and I know everyone listening has experienced this, you get those hypnic jerks.
No, the sudden, terrifying sensation of falling.
Yes, you're just drifting off, perfectly peaceful, and suddenly your brain thinks you've missed a step on a staircase.
Yeah, exactly.
Your whole body twitches and you're wide awake again, heart pounding. It's such a strange glitch in the transition between being awake and asleep.
It's a fascinating neurological quirk. It's a sort of misfire between the wakeful motor controls shutting down and the sleep centers taking over.
Huh.
But once you safely pass through that light transition, you reach stage N2.
Hmm.
This is the true onset of sleep.
Right.
If we look at a brain scan during this phase, we see these sudden, rapid bursts of electrical activity called sleep spindles mixed with massive slow waves called K-complexes.
Oh, wow.
And while stage N2 might not get as much attention in popular culture as, say, deep sleep or dreaming, it's incredibly important. You actually spend roughly 45 to 55% of your night in this stage.
But then we dive even deeper, right down into stage N3,
Yes.
the slow wave sleep.
But this is the profound depth of the night. Stage N3 is dominated by delta waves. These are very slow, rhythmic, high-amplitude brain waves.
Okay.
It's the most physically restorative stage of the entire cycle. This is when the body releases growth hormone and does its major physical repairs.
Wow, so this is the deep healing phase.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And if you try to wake someone up during stage N3, they're going to be incredibly groggy, disoriented, and confused.
Yeah.
It's the hardest stage to wake from because the brain is pulled so incredibly far away from waking consciousness.
And just when you hit the very bottom of that dive, everything flips. You enter REM sleep,
Mm-hmm.
rapid eye movement. This stage is just a total paradox to me. Your brain is suddenly almost as active as it is when you're wide awake. Your eyes are darting around rapidly beneath your eyelids, but your voluntary muscles, they're completely paralyzed.
That paralysis is a state called atonia, and it's a brilliant critical safety mechanism.
Because of the dreaming, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
REM is where our most vivid narrative dreams occur. If our muscles weren't paralyzed, we would literally act out our dreams running and jumping around the bedroom.
Which would obviously be incredibly dangerous for us and anyone sleeping next to us.
Very dangerous, yes.
So we ride this 90-minute roller coaster. N1, N2, deep N3, back up to REM. Do we just do that loop in exact equal measure all night long?
Well, not quite. The distribution isn't even at all.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the architecture actually shifts as the night goes on.
Hmm.
The early cycles, right after you fall asleep, are heavily front-loaded with that deep, slow-wave N3 sleep.
Okay.
But as you get closer to the morning hours, those 90-minute loops lean heavily into REM sleep.
Ah, that makes sense.
Yeah, that's why when your alarm goes off in the morning, you're so often right in the middle of a very complex, bizarre dream.
Yeah.
You're getting most of your REM just before waking.
And it isn't just the time of night that shifts this architecture, it's the time of life, too. Like, newborn babies sleep 14 to 17 hours a day, and they spend up to half of that entire time in REM sleep.
Right, it's huge for them.
Their brains are basically building themselves in that dream state. But then as we age, that deep N3 slow wave sleep peaks in childhood and drops off sharply in old age.
Which brings us back to the core mystery. Since the brain is incredibly active during all of these distinct stages, expending a massive amount of energy, what exactly is it working on?
Right.
Why has evolution engineered this elaborate nightly routine?
Okay, let's unpack this because there are a few leading theories, and they all seem to point to different essential biological maintenance tasks. One of the most compelling ones is the synaptic homeostasis hypothesis. It was proposed back in 2003 by Giulio Tononi and Chiara Sorelli. And the best way I've found to visualize this is like defragmenting a computer hard drive.
That's a really great analogy for what's happening on a cellular level.
Because throughout the day, while we're awake and learning and experiencing things, our synapses, the connections between our neurons, are constantly firing and strengthening.
Right.
If that just continued endlessly, our brains would eventually run out of physical space and energy. We'd hit a point of total saturation.
Exactly.
So this hypothesis suggests that sleep essentially downscales all those synapses back to a baseline. It deletes the meaningless clutter you picked up during the day to save energy and improve the brain's overall signal-to-noise ratio.
Yeah.
You're clearing out the junk files so the operating system can run smoothly tomorrow.
And while that downscaling is happening, the brain is also doing the critical work of memory consolidation.
Oh, right, the filing system.
Exactly. During sleep, your hippocampus, which is basically the temporary receiving dock for new memories, actually replays the events of the day.
Wait, it replays them?
Yeah, it plays them back and transfers them over to the neocortex, which is the permanent storage facility. And what's amazing is that the different stages of sleep handle different types of files.
How so?
Well, that deep, slow-wave N3 sleep, that handles declarative memory. Facts, figures, events.
The things you'd study for a history test.
Precisely. But REM sleep handles a completely different category. REM processes procedural memory, how to do things.
Like riding a bike.
Right, or the muscle memory of playing a piano, as well as emotional memory. It helps integrate how you feel about what happened to you, stripping away the raw, visceral emotion so you can process the memory safely.
So we have the archivist filing away memories, and we have the IT department defragmenting the hard drive. But there's also a physical cleaning crew.
Yes, there is.
And this is where it gets really interesting because this is a relatively recent discovery. In 2012 and 2013, Maiken Niedergaard and her team at the University of Rochester discovered what's called the glymphatic system.
This was an absolute breakthrough in our understanding of the resting brain.
It really was. They found that during sleep, the actual physical space between our brain cells expands by about 60%.
60%, yeah.
And by opening up that interstitial space, it allows cerebrospinal fluid to rush in and flush out the metabolic waste that builds up during waking hours.
Vital.
This includes flushing out beta amyloid, which is the protein heavily linked to Alzheimer's disease. I always picture this like an office cleaning crew that only has clearance to come into the building after hours.
I love that image.
Once everybody's gone, once you're asleep, the cleaning crew physically shoves the desks out of the way, shrinking the cells down just so they can get in there and power wash the floors.
It's a beautiful mechanism. The brain is the only organ in the body that doesn't have its own traditional lymphatic system to clear waste, so it relies entirely on this glymphatic system.
Oh, wow. I didn't realize that.
Yeah, and it's almost exclusively active only during sleep. So sleep is, in a very literal physical sense, the brain's deep cleaning cycle.
So if sleep is this vital biological janitor and this essential archivist, what happens when we skip it? What's the immediate toll of staying awake?
The consequences are immediate and severe. If you stay awake for just 17 to 19 hours, which for many people is just a slightly long workday, your performance impairment already rivals legal alcohol intoxication.
That is terrifying.
It is. Your reaction times, your judgment, your emotional regulation, they all degrade significantly.
It's scary to think how many people are driving home from a long shift, essentially operating under the influence of wakefulness.
It's a massive, often ignored public health issue.
Yeah.
And that's just the immediate toll. The chronic toll of lacking sleep is systemic. It weakens the immune system. It drastically raises the risk of cardiovascular disease, type 2 diabetes, obesity, hypertension, and it heavily impairs glucose metabolism.
Wow.
Your body literally begins to break down on a cellular level without that maintenance window.
So if the body physically breaks down without this maintenance, it makes you wonder what happens when people intentionally try to push past that limit, because we've seen people try to beat sleep, haven't we?
We have, and the historical records of this are wild. Let's look at one of the most famous cases from 1964.
Okay.
There was a 17-year-old high school student named Randy Gardner who decided, for a science fair project, to see how long he could stay awake.
For a science fair project.
Yes. And he managed to stay awake for 11 days and 25 minutes. That's 264.4 hours.
Oh my goodness.
He was actually observed by a famous Stanford researcher, William Dement. Now, during those 11 days, Gardner experienced severe mood swings, memory problems. He completely lost his concentration, and he suffered from intense paranoia.
And there was another famous case too, Peter Tripp, right?
Yes, in 1959, Peter Tripp was a New York radio DJ who stayed awake in a glass booth in Times Square for 201 hours as a publicity stunt.
201 hours in a glass booth.
Yeah, and Tripp experienced horrific, vivid hallucinations. He thought his shoes were full of spiders, he showed severe psychosis-like symptoms, and his entire personality seemed to alter during the ordeal. He became incredibly hostile.
Okay, wait. I have to push back here, though.
Sure.
Let's look back at Randy Gardner. You've got this teenager who goes 11 days without sleep, hallucinates a bit, gets paranoid, but then reportedly he just slept for 14 hours afterward and woke up fine.
Right.
No lasting physical harm. So is sleep really a life or death necessity, or is it just highly recommended? I mean, we treat it like oxygen, but you can't go 11 days without water, let alone oxygen.
It's a very fair question, and Gardner's case often makes people wonder if sleep is just a luxury we've evolved to enjoy.
Yeah.
But the chilling reality, the absolute fatal reality, is that sleep is strictly non-negotiable. It is a biological imperative. If we look beyond those human endurance stints, the scientific evidence is undeniable. In the 1980s, Alan Rechtschaffen at the University of Chicago conducted studies on rats, subjecting them to total sleep deprivation.
And what happened?
Despite eating completely normally, every single rat died within 2 to 3 weeks. Without sleep, their bodies simply suffered total systemic failure.
That is terrifying. But there's a human equivalent, too, isn't there? A medical condition where people just completely lose the ability to sleep.
There is, and it's perhaps one of the most haunting diseases in medical history. It's called fatal familial insomnia. It was first described by Elio Lugaresi in 1986. It's an exceedingly rare prion disease caused by a mutation in the PRNP gene.
And just to clarify what a prion is, since it sounds like heavy medical jargon, it's essentially a misfolded protein, right?
Yes, exactly.
Proteins need to be folded into very specific shapes to do their jobs. A prion is folded wrong, and the terrifying part is that it acts almost like a zombie. When it touches a normal protein in the brain, it forces that normal protein to misfold too, setting off this devastating, unstoppable chain reaction.
Spot on. It's a relentless cascade.
All right.
And what this specific prion mutation does is destroy the thalamus, the part of the brain that regulates sleep.
Oh, no.
It causes a progressive, absolute inability to sleep. Patients slip into this terrible, agonizing twilight state. They suffer from severe autonomic dysfunction. Their blood pressure spikes. They sweat profusely, and that's followed by rapid dementia and ultimately death.
How long does it take?
It typically takes months to a few years to run its course, and there is no cure. Fatal familial insomnia is the darkest, most definitive proof we have that sleep isn't an optional luxury. It's a pillar of survival.
Okay, so a total lack of sleep is quite literally fatal. It's a non-negotiable biological pillar. But looking at it through the lens of evolution, sleep seems like a terrible design flaw. Out in the wild, lying completely unconscious, paralyzed, and blind for hours at a time should get you eaten. How do animals survive that kind of extreme vulnerability?
Well, evolution is always a high-stakes balancing act of risk and reward. Sleep must offer an evolutionary advantage so massive that it outweighs the immense danger of being unconscious.
Makes sense.
At a baseline, sleep lowers a creature's metabolic demand by roughly 10 to 15%.
Yeah.
It reduces the body's caloric demand, which is a massive advantage when food is scarce.
Oh, that's true.
And, perhaps counterintuitively, sleep keeps animals quiet and hidden during times of day when it's dangerous or unproductive to be out foraging. Sleep is entirely shaped by the demands of survival in different ecological niches.
And the animal kingdom has found some extreme, almost unbelievable adaptations to solve that vulnerability problem, like unihemispheric sleep.
Oh, this is one of nature's greatest tricks. Dolphins and some species of whales literally sleep with only one half of their brain at a time.
That is so cool.
Right. The left hemisphere will go into deep, slow-wave sleep, while the right hemisphere stays awake to control breathing, allow them to swim, and watch for predators. Then they simply switch sides.
It's like sleeping with one eye open, but neurologically literal.
Yes.
And it isn't just marine mammals that do this. Niels Rattenborg led a fascinating study in 2016 looking at great frigate birds. These birds go on massive ocean crossings, flying for days or even weeks at a time without landing.
Right.
The researchers found that these birds actually engage in unihemispheric sleep while they are in flight. They're soaring on thermal currents thousands of feet in the air over the open ocean, with half their brain asleep.
It's a perfect example of evolution finding a brilliant workaround for the absolute necessity of sleep. We also see extreme adaptations in how long animals sleep.
Oh yeah, like giraffes.
Yes, giraffes, living out on the savanna where predators are everywhere, are among the lightest sleepers of all large mammals. They sleep for a total of maybe 30 minutes to 2 hours a day, broken up into these tiny, short naps.
Just power naps?
Exactly. Elephants sleep just 2 to 4 hours a day, often while standing up.
And horses, they sleep about 3 hours a day. They have this incredible biological feature called a stay apparatus that physically locks their leg joints in place so they can sleep while standing.
Right.
But this circles back to something we talked about earlier, which I find absolutely marvelous. Because of atonia, that total muscle paralysis that happens during REM sleep,
Yes.
even a horse, which is heavily evolved to stand up for safety, must physically lie down on the ground to achieve REM sleep. They have to surrender to that deep vulnerability, or they'll just collapse when the paralysis hits.
That's the fascinating part. Even the most highly adapted animals can't escape the physiological rules of the sleep stages.
Yeah.
On the other end of the spectrum, from the giraffes and elephants, you have the heavy sleepers. Brown bats, for instance, sleep up to 19 or 20 hours a day.
20 hours.
Yeah. They hunt insects for a few hours at dusk and then go back to the total safety of a dark cave to conserve energy.
It's wild how sleep scales and adapts with the complexity and the environment of the animal. Which actually makes me wonder, where is the floor on this?
What do you mean?
If dolphins can split their brains in half to manage it, do you even need a complex brain to sleep? Like, what's the simplest creature that still has to do this?
That's exactly what researchers wanted to know. And in 2017, they look at jellyfish.
Jellyfish.
Yeah, and what they found fundamentally shifted how we view sleep. Scientists observed that jellyfish enter distinct sleep-like states. They become noticeably less responsive, their pulsing slows down, and if you continually bother them and keep them awake, they show clear signs of sleep deprivation the next day, moving sluggishly.
Oh, wow.
And why is this so profound? Because jellyfish don't have a central nervous system. They don't have a brain.
They literally don't have a brain.
Right. The fact that a brainless organism requires sleep suggests that this process is incredibly ancient, deeply conserved across the tree of life, originating long before complex brains ever evolved.
That is just incredible. Okay, so we have this picture of sleep as an ancient evolutionary necessity. It's biological housekeeping, it's memory filing, it's energy conservation. It's all very practical, mechanical stuff. But there's one aspect of sleep that defies all this rigid practicality. It seems entirely abstract, almost mystical. I'm talking about dreams.
Yes. Dreams are the great theater of the resting brain. And scientifically, they're a relatively new area of rigorous study.
Really?
Yeah. It wasn't until 1953 that Eugene Sarinsky and Nathaniel Kleitman discovered REM sleep and officially linked it to dreaming. That was the foundational moment of modern sleep science.
And we should clarify, we do dream outside of REM, right? But it's a completely different experience.
Yes, absolutely. NREM dreams, the ones that happen in the deeper, slow-wave stages, tend to be very fragmentary.
Okay.
They're more thought-like, just vague impressions or static images. But REM dreams, those are the vivid, emotional, highly narrative hallucinations. You are the star of a bizarre, fully immersive movie.
So why do we do it? Why do we hallucinate these complex stories every single night?
One prominent idea is the activation synthesis hypothesis. It was proposed by J. Allen Hobson and Robert McCarley in 1977. This theory strips away the mysticism entirely.
Okay, how so?
It argues that during REM, the brainstem is just firing off random electrical signals. It's pure neurological static. But your cortex, the part of the brain responsible for meaning, logic, and storytelling, absolutely hates chaos.
Right, it wants a pattern.
So it desperately tries to synthesize those random signals, weaving them together into a cohesive narrative. The dream is just your brain trying to make sense of its own internal noise.
But then there's the threat simulation theory, which feels much more aligned with evolution. Andrew Avansu proposed this in 2000. He argued that dreams are essentially a built-in virtual reality simulator. Evolution designed the dream state so our ancient ancestors could safely rehearse escaping real-world threats. You dream about being chased by a predator or failing a critical task so that if it happens in waking life, your neural pathways are already primed and practiced for escape.
It perfectly explains why so many of our dreams are anxiety-inducing or involve being pursued, unprepared, or lost. It's a safe sandbox for survival training.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
And our understanding of this dream space has only deepened. In the 1980s, Stephen LaBerge proved the existence of lucid dreaming.
Oh, I've heard of this.
Yeah, it's the state where you become actively aware that you're dreaming and can sometimes even control the narrative. He did this by having subjects communicate with the waking world from inside REM sleep using prearranged, deliberate eye movements.
Which is basically sending Morse code from the dream world.
Exactly.
It's mind-blowing, and it just highlights how active, how remarkably alive the mind is in the dark.
It really is.
So what does this all mean? We started this deep dive asking why we sleep. And the summary of it all is that sleep isn't one single thing. It isn't an empty void.
No.
Evolution took memory consolidation, cellular cleaning, physical restoration, and energy conservation, and bundled them all into this one unified state of altered consciousness.
Yes.
We spend 30 years of our lives in this condition. It's the resting brain, quietly doing the heavy lifting that makes waking life even possible.
It's the very foundation of our existence. But if we step back and look at the whole picture, and we'll leave you with a final thought to mull over in the dark tonight.
Okay?
If an animal entirely without a brain, like a jellyfish, requires a sleep-like state, does that mean the need for rest is woven into the very fabric of biological cells themselves, rather than being a property of consciousness?
Wow.
We've always thought of sleep as something our minds do, something intimately tied to our brains. But perhaps, at its deepest level, it is something our very cells demand.
That's a beautiful and slightly haunting thought to end on. As you lie down tonight and feel those theta waves begin to wash over you, remember the vast, ancient biological symphony you're participating in. Thank you for joining us in the quiet hours. Have a good night from Science After Dark.